Powell's reign of terror is finally over. Let's talk about it. Hello everybody, Joe Werper coming at you. And I know I started the video out pretty aggressively. I called it Powell's reign of terror. And while I know that Powell believes he is helping, I personally think he started way too late and he pushed this system way too far for his rate increases to be truly effective. And we can see that across the spectrum of the economy. So what has happened? Fed Chairman Powell has raised interest rates a whopping 10 times in a very short period, taking our rate from around 0% all the way up to 5.25%. And this is going to have long-term reverberations across this economy that we cannot even begin to fathom what they are today. We will just have to wait and see. So this all came about because of COVID. We had COVID, we shut down the entire global economy. The United States economy shut down. When the economy restarted, we saw massive inflation hitting as high as 9%. That is unbelievable, but it is expected when you shut down an economy. Now, early on, Powell said, this is transitory, this is temporary. Unfortunately, he was wrong. So when inflation took off, Powell realized the only way he could stop massive inflation was by raising interest rates, and boy, did he do that. And where are we today? We're seeing the highest mortgage rates this country has seen in a long time. Just a few years ago, if you would have bought a $500,000 house, you could have easily secured a 3% mortgage rate. That would have cost you about $2,100 a month for a 30-year mortgage. Today, that same mortgage is going to run you about 7% at a cost of about $3,300 a month, otherwise translated into a 58% increase in mortgage rates because Powell took too long to raise interest rates to bring inflation under control. Because of this crazy rate increase in mortgages, the only reason we haven't seen housing crash is because, number one, there's still an unprecedented demand for housing. You can see that our demographics in this country, we have about 80 million boomers, we have about 60 million Gen Xers, and when we bring together the millennials and Gen Y, that's another 160 million people. Those 160 million people are now looking for houses. And the boomers and Gen Xers, they don't want to sell their house because they have 2 and 3% mortgage rates. They're not willing to sell their house and get a new mortgage rate at 7%. So the inventory of housing has come to an all-time low since the pandemic began. There's just no houses out there for sale. And because we have such a pent-up demand and such a small inventory, housing has maintained its value. Now, it's not climbing in the double digits that we saw climbing during COVID, but it is maintaining its value, and we have not seen a collapse in housing, and I don't expect to see a collapse in housing. Now that Powell has unofficially declared that his rate increases have stopped, we should see mortgages drop back down to around 4.5% to 5%, which then maybe we'll see some people free up and want to sell their houses, but I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. The other effect we saw on Powell's reign of terror was that he brought banks to near collapsing. We saw 4 banks collapse in the past year because of the drastic increase in interest rates. And banks are not out of the clear yet. See, what banks are doing is they're not paying you, the depositor, a commensurate rate. If you put money in a checking or a savings account, you'll be lucky to get 1%. Most banks aren't going to pay you even a tenth of that. But money market accounts are paying 4 and 5%. So what a lot of people are doing is they're going in their deposit accounts, they're pulling money out, and they're sticking them into money market accounts at a 400% rate increase, which makes sense. But beware, while money market accounts are quote unquote safe, they can lose money if we see drastic changes in interest rates in the future. So do not think that your money market account is as safe as your FDIC depository account at your bank. So because the cost to borrow money has gone up almost 10 times, not only are banks seeing a short supply of deposits, they're seeing a massive fall off in loans. People just aren't borrowing money. You know, just 2 years ago, you could borrow money at 1%, 2%, 3%. Now loans are costing as much as 10% interest to borrow, and that is creating a massive glut of loans for these banks. So the only way the banks make money is on deposit accounts and loans, and people are pulling their money out of deposit accounts and they aren't making loans, so banks are in trouble. Now, I don't think banks are going to fail, But if Powell doesn't actually follow through, and if he doesn't actually stop increasing rates, we could see a long-term effect on the banks. And we have no idea if this is actually going to cause a recession in this country. We will just have to wait and see. And finally, Powell has basically scared the markets into submission. Since his last rate increase, we haven't seen the S&P, the Dow, or the Nasdaq really move at all, but up a few points and down a few points because they have no idea what's going to happen. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't know if we'll see the markets move until the next Fed meeting, which occurs in June. Thank goodness we don't have to wait a long time. And maybe then if he actually does not raise rates, maybe then we'll see these markets come back because the actual economy itself is strong. Heck, every time I go into a shopping mall or a store, I'm seeing people spend money. I was just at Dick's Sporting Goods today, and there was a line of over 30 people waiting just to check out. So people are spending money. Businesses are doing okay, but the market isn't, mortgage rates aren't, and banks are going to have some issues moving forward. Positive news, it looks like Powell's done, but it'll be a long time until we see what the true after effects are of this unprecedented rate increase. If you like videos like this, make sure you check out some of my other videos, subscribe to see future content, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.